The British Navy announces it has seized Iranian missiles meant for the Houthis. The world ignores the Yemen crisis during the recent donors conference in Geneva. Houthi families continue to make significant wealth from the oil revenues of Hodeidah port. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. I'm Abir Ali and you're watching the English news. The British Navy has recovered weapons and ballistic missiles components heading from Iran to Yemen. The capture follows several such seizures in the region by French and US forces, and Western nations intensify pressure on Iran.
Authorities claimed on Thursday that the British Navy recovered anti-tank missiles and fins for ballistic missile components during a search on a boat traveling from Iran to Yemen, the latest such capture in the Gulf of Oman. The Royal Navy's detention follows several seizures in the region by French and US forces as Western nations intensify pressure on Iran. It also comes as regional and international forces struggle to put an end to Yemen's protracted civil war, and as Iran arms Russia in its conflict with Ukraine. The attack occurred on February 23rd when an American aircraft discovered a small motorboat carrying goods hidden by a gray tarp headed from Iran. The boat attempted to re-enter Iranian territorial waters but was intercepted. Inside the boat, British troops found anti-tank guided missiles that have been seen in other seizures suspected to be from Iran and bound for Yemen. The US Navy described the incident as occurring along a path traditionally used to smuggle weapons unlawfully to Yemen, although the British did not specify where they believed the weapons would turn. Iranian components have aided in the development of a missile arsenal for Yemen's Houthi rebels, who have occupied the country's capital Sana'a since 2014. A United Nations resolution prohibits arms deliveries to Yemen's Houthi rebels. Despite tangible proof, several seizures and experts tracing the weapons back to Iran, Tehran has consistently denied arming the insurgents. Yemen's war has mostly devolved into a stalemate, resulting in one of the world's greatest humanitarian crises. According to the Yemen Data Project, no Saudi-led airstrikes have been documented in Yemen since the kingdom declared a ceasefire at the end of March 2022. Despite international efforts to prolong it, the ceasefire ended in October. This has raised concerns that the war would re-escalate. Throughout the battle in Yemen, more than 150,000 people have been killed, including around 14,000 civilians.
Yemenis are collecting mines and explosive devices to sell them on the black market and again some money in order to survive the hard living conditions and save their children from death. The following report has more details.
Landmines, a commodity that is being sold by impoverished Yemenis. When one of the world's most heavily mined countries was hit by flooding, civilians risked their lives to gather them for sale on the black market. In one weapons market, landmines were going for an average of 5,000 Yemeni riyals, or $20 each. Such desperation is just one illustration of the dire situation and need to help Yemenis and to find a political solution. It should have also been top of people's minds at the UN donor conference held in Geneva earlier this week. However, amid waning interest in the long-running conflict and the intense global focus on Ukraine, an aid target of $4.3 billion was missed. This lack of financial engagement is not only ruinous for the estimated 17.3 million Yemenis in urgent need of assistance. It also reveals a wider failure to prioritize a conflict that is a source of serious regional instability and cross-border terrorism. This week, a study released by the Middle East Institute described how the main stumbling block to ending the conflict, the violent and disruptive Houthi militia, had late last year engaged in economic warfare to exhaust the Yemeni government's financial resources and provoke social unrest in government-held areas. It also described how the Houthis' attacks on infrastructure revealed the same strategic use of Iranian-supported non-conventional warfare tactics seen in their previous cross-border attacks, in light of the movement's attempts to destabilize those parts of Yemen outside its control. Finding a way to even begin the process of reconstruction seems challenging. What this week's donor conference has made clear is that a sticking plaster approach to Yemen, in which aid conferences do not tackle the root of the problem, is not enough. Some participants in the Geneva talks made clear the need for a change in approach. Yemeni Prime Minister Ma'in Abdul Malik told attendees that ending the humanitarian crisis starts with ending the war. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, "The aid being pledged saves lives, but it cannot resolve the conflict itself."
Two government officials said that a permanent Saudi leader was killed by the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda. France 24 quoted a security source as saying that the Saudi leader was killed in the airstrike that targeted a house he had recently rented in Ma'rib. In late January, 3 fighters affiliated with the terrorist organization were killed in a suspect U.S. drone strike in the same governorate. The National Commission to Investigate Human Rights Violations documented 158 cases in February. The committee called on all parties to stop all acts of violence against persons and properties and to respect freedom without any discrimination. A human rights report revealed that 7 civilians died under the torture in the prisons of the terrorist Houthi militia during 2022. The Irada organization said that 7 civilians abductees died due to the torture, and various torture crimes were documented for 120 abductees. In the report stated that 108 reports of kidnappings and enforced disappearances of civilians from homes, workplaces, checkpoints, and military ambushes. Houthi leaders' wealth keep growing due to the forced levies in addition to gain from oil revenues. This report has more.
Houthi leaders' families have diverted billions of Yemeni riyals from oil, taxes, and other levies into their own wallets, and also profited from the creation of oil black markets, as the UN panel of experts has said. This finding by UN experts has validated Yemeni activities, and authorities long held suspicions that militia members are using the conflict to enrich themselves. Instead of utilizing the earnings to pay public workers in regions under their control, as the UN-brokered Stockholm Agreement requires, the Houthis used the money to line their own pockets and finance military activities. Under the Stockholm Agreement, the Houthis were to collect customs duties on the import of oil through the port of Hodeidah, on the condition that they would pay public service salaries. However, the panel was informed that no salaries had been paid at the time of writing. In addition to other sources of revenues, such as taxes on mobile and landline services, which are estimated at 45 billion Yemeni riyals per year, the Houthis have imposed a 1/5 tax on mineral, water, and fishing industries and other economic activities. The UN experts discovered that the Houthis engaged in drug smuggling and trade in order to fund their military activities, and the Saudi authorities told them that they had intercepted several shipments of narcotic substances originating from the Houthis in Yemen. UN experts have identified the Iran-backed Houthis as the primary abusers of human rights in Yemen due to their indiscriminate attacks on civilian gatherings and infrastructure, arbitrary abductions, torture, forced disappearances, and forced levies.
The contractors of Civil Aviation Authority in Aden carried out a protest in front of the authority's headquarters. The protesters confirmed that contractors represent 75% of the total number of the authority's employees at Aden Airport. They explained that the Commission had previously made many promises to install them, but it had not fulfilled any of them until this moment. The specialized committees of the Consultation and Reconciliation Commission continued their meetings. They discussed setting the general framework for the political vision for the comprehensive peace process that represents all the forces of legitimacy. Coming next in the news. The Houthi escalation in the west coast forces thousands of families to evacuate.
راهبوا اسمه ذا كان يعالجون هناك جلست عليه 6 أيام.
So they're giving you nutrition for him?
قالوا لي سلمي له عنده ديله تاتوا بطاق الأسبوع يبون 15 ودحين تركه مدري هي يهبون له مدري لا يا صعب علينا بعض الحين بنحصلوا له حتى 10 ريال والله معانا قال له حقه من نشتري.
And what's the problem with his hands? What happened?
ياكلها بس نالوا لما يسيل دم.
Oh my gosh, it's red raw. Why is he eating his fingers?
ياكلها بنفسه كذا يمسكها وياكلها لما يسيل دم. بعد الحين مراها لقدي يسيل دم من هنا من سنانه حتى ينكع مضلعه. الحين ما احس الحين معه ولا قال لهم هاسبوا. الحين ما راهن جاع هم ما بهن.
Welcome back. The International Organization for Migration announced the displacement of 42 Yemeni families during the past week. In its weekly report on displacement cases, the organization said that between the displacement matrix tracked 42 families representing 252 individuals who were displaced at least once. They indicated that the displaced moved to the governorates of Marib, Al-Hodeidah, Taiz and Chabwa. In southern Al-Hodeidah, dozens of displaced families flocked from the war to Hais district during the month of February as a result of the escalation of the Houthis on the liberated villages in Makbana, west of Taiz, which led to a forced displacement as a result of the systematic bombing by the militia that affected them. This report has more details.
The state of this place is not very different from this afflicted family, who escaped the ongoing war in their village in Makbana and survived to settle in the city of Hais, waiting for someone to support them with food and shelter.
The Houthis are bombing us with missiles. We are a displaced family. We left our home and came here to live in this tent with no furniture, food or clothes. We're freezing in this cold weather.
We escaped from the war and we left our village without taking anything. We don't have clothes or food. Our situation is really bad and it keeps getting worse. We're trying to adapt to our new condition, but it's extremely hard. We can't even work or get a job. How are we supposed to survive then?
An extreme suffering that the displaced people are going through. The unjust war forced thousands of citizens to flee their areas and leave their homes to stay in huts and face a bitter reality. They made from this land a shelter for them and their children, while the evening and its severe cold is adding to the suffering of these people.
20 families were displaced from Makbana district during this week. The situation is extremely bad. They don't have proper tents, blankets or furniture. They live in the open with no shelter. There are 4 families living here together. They cover their hut with a sheet. It doesn't protect them from the heat of the sun or cold weather at night. They are suffering here a lot. The Houthi militia keeps shelling civilians and their areas with missiles and explosive devices, forcing families to leave their homes and seek safety elsewhere. We call on the authorities and the organizations to interfere immediately.
Dozens of displaced families flocked during the month of February towards the city of Hais as a result of the escalation of the Houthis and the continuous bombing of civilians and their properties, which led to a large wave of displacement from the villages of Makbana to Hais, left without care or attention, waiting for organizations and beneficiaries to help them with relief aid and humanitarian assistance.
أولاً أنا فيصل عبد صالح. أنا مسؤول مخيم الأمن المركزي في محافظة الضالع مديرية قاطبة. وبالنسبة لأم ناصر بعد وفاة ابنها ناصر وزوجها ناصر كان بالعمر 11 سنة وكان يعاني من مرض كثير في جسمه. مرض أولاً تكسرات بالدم ثانياً، وهو كان جسمه هزيل جداً. ناصر قد أصيب بمرض وهو الفتاك والقاتل الأخير، هو مرض الكوليرا، وبعدها انتقل إلى المستشفى وتفوجئنا أنه قد توفي ناصر بمرض الكوليرا، يعني دون أن نقدر أن نعمل له حاجة.
Parliamentary sources revealed the Houthi militia's intentions to issue a new banking law in Sana'a that would enable it to control trillions of reals. Parliament members said that the militia had submitted a new draft law to be issued through the Houthis, the House of the Representatives. The law provides for the cancellation and the revocation of all agreements signed by the government or banks in Sana'a, whether international, bilateral, or other agreements. The death toll of children infected with German measles had increased in Hajj. Medical sources said the Houthi militia prevented the provision of vaccine doses to children in the area of their control, which provided an opportunity for epidemics and diseases. In light of the war and the active minefields littering the country, disabling rates have grown rapidly. Scores of war-wounded patients visit Thai's prosthetics, limbs and rehabilitation institute to obtain treatment. The following report has more details.
Abdullah Sainan, a young patient whose left leg was amputated after being hit with a Houthi shell, frequents the Thai's Prosthetic Limbs and Rehabilitation Institute on a regular basis, assisted by his brother Ayman. Abdullah is currently undergoing physical therapy to learn how to walk with a prosthetic leg.
I was only 10 years old when I was struck with the Houthi shell. With my prosthetic, I've been able to play with friends and my life has regained normalcy.
This workshop houses all of the machinery and equipment required for professional experts and assistants to manufacture and maintain the prosthetics.
هنا طبعا مركز اللطافة الصناعية يستقبل جميع الحالات سواء كانت اللي بالحلب أو المدنيين.
The Thai's Prosthetic Limbs and Rehabilitation Center receives all sorts of patients, whether they are war-wounded soldiers or civilians. Employees here work around the clock to ensure patients are receiving proper treatment. However, we lack a few pieces of equipment.
Scores of war-wounded patients visit this facility regularly to obtain treatments including prosthetic installation, movement alignment and correction, wheelchairs, crutches, and psychological assistance, among other things.
Those wounded in war require long-term rehabilitation. That's why we're trying to expand our services. In this center, we offer vital mobility aids such as crutches and wheelchairs, and services such as physical therapy and psychological rehabilitation. We also have a comprehensive database of war victims.
The facility is seeing a large attendance, notably from the Houthi militia war victims, whose numbers are growing daily as a result of the ongoing conflict.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The British Navy announces it has seized Iranian missiles meant for the Houthis. The world ignores the Yemen crisis during the recent donor conference in Geneva. Houthi families continue to make significant wealth from oil revenues of Hodeidah ports. This is the end of the news. It was Abir Ali and thank you for watching.